K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am America.
Now here's your host, Bryce Robbins.
Hello, everybody, and, well, happy birthday to me yesterday. But it is obviously good to be here today, and today I'm joined by congressional hopeful Alex Law. Hello, Alex.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good. So, there's something unique about Mr. Law. He is running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District of New Jersey. But something sets him aside from all the old white guys who are in control now. He's very young. So, Mr. Law, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to get into the, hard-hitting questions.
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show. I really do appreciate that. I grew up in the district that I'm now running. I grew up in a small town called Voorhees, New Jersey. Went up to college at NYU Stern, got a business degree in finance and information systems, and then did a few years doing strategy consulting for IBM. And I decided to leave that job and run for Congress in the district that I grew up in because of some very distressing political things going on in that area. I really wanted to help as many people as I can. And you alluded to my youth. I'm actually, if I win, I'll be the first person elected to federal office that was born in the 1990s. I was born in 1991. I'm currently 24 years old. And by the time of the election, I will be 25, but would still make me the youngest congressman in the United States of America and the youngest congressman since the 1970s.
Well, that would be exciting, because then people like me and my friends and a lot of people would have somebody on their side. Because
Exactly.
It seems that today a lot of our elected officials really don't care about the younger generation. It seems that that's what it always is that the younger generation gets screwed over with all the problems. So I guess, maybe it's time we get a younger person to take care of us. So,
right. If you look, we have like one of the oldest, or if not the oldest Congress that we've ever had, while at the same time millennials make up almost a third of the voting population. And the fact that we don't have a single representative in Congress talking about issues that we care about is something that just isn't okay, and it's something I'm trying to change.
Hey, absolutely. Now, let me ask you. So, what would be your main issue? It seems that every congressman, every senator has a main issue that they want to write legislation on. What will your focus be when you get elected?
Well, I would tell you there's really two things. Let's say three things that I talk often about. The first thing that we put on all of our literature, and whenever I'm giving a talk to someone, I bring up is campaign finance reform. And the reason I don't say that that's my prime issue is because I'm not sure exactly what Congress will be able to do about it, especially since the Citizens United 2007 case has sort of made it where we need a constitutional amendment to address the ridiculous state of campaign finance in this country. but it's an issue that I will always talk a lot about and believe that we need to solve in order to really begin to take on a lot of the other issues. Because if unlimited, untraceable money continues to flow into politics to congressmen, to senators, from big corporations and very wealthy individuals, I feel it's going to be very difficult to see the kind of change that we need in this country. Two other issues that I talk a tremendous about is student loan reform, the fact that, banks borrow at less than 1% and our students borrow anywhere from 6 to 12%. So we're turning our students, our future, into profit centers. We're turning our banks into charities. Isn't okay. If you took the piece of the federal government that gave out student loans last year, it would have been one of the top 5 most profitable companies in the entire world. And to me, that's a situation that isn't okay. We need to be encouraging people to continue to educate themselves, especially as the global economy becomes more competitive and higher education becomes an even greater necessity than it already is. And I also talk a lot about sustainable energy, especially in my district, where my opponent in the Democratic primary is someone who, in many instances, since he's been in Congress just this one term, has voted with the Republicans on almost every controversial bill, one of them being the Keystone Pipeline. He voted with the Republicans on the Keystone Pipeline, something that I absolutely disagree with. I think that we need to take money and subsidies away from oil and big coal and put it towards sustainable energy, not just for a moral reason, but for an economic reason. I think if America continues to develop technology around green and sustainable energy, it's a technology and it's information that we can then export to the rest of the world and can make a ton of American jobs, not just in my district, where it certainly would, but across the country. So those are some issues that I talk a ton about. I also talk a lot about LGBTQ rights and how, despite the recent victory with marriage equality, there's still a lot of work that we need to do, both in the workplace and in terms of hate crime protection at a federal level. I talk a lot about raising the minimum wage. I talk a lot about how we need to reconsider how we're continuing to proliferate the military-industrial complex, and that not that we need to weaken our military. I think our military needs to remain strong and the greatest military in the world, but the fact that we can make it stronger by stopping our waste with all of the enormous contracts to defense contractors, creating things that we don't even need. And that all goes back again to campaign finance reform, because if they couldn't lobby so aggressively, they wouldn't probably get those contracts. So these are some of the things that I talk about, out on the campaign trail when I'm meeting and talking to people.
Hey, all that sounds great. Now, let me ask you about the minimum wage you just talked about. We hear a lot of argument about if we raise it too much, then people are going to end up losing their jobs, and you're going to wind up paying, $15 for a hamburger at McDonald's. So what is your ideal minimum wage? How would you continue to increase it? What are your beliefs on the minimum wage? Do you think a $15 minimum wage is too much, too little? Where are you on this?
No, so I reject the narrative that we can't pay people a living wage in the wealthiest country in the history of the world to protect corporate interests. I mean, to me, that's ridiculous. To me, in this country, if you work a full-time job, you should be able to, at the very least, afford food and rent for your family. And that's something no one's going to be able to convince me otherwise. So I do support a $15 minimum wage. I also reject the narrative that that's going to make so that there's less jobs in this country. I mean, I just gave a talk at a company in my district, Amerinox Steel, where they employ about 100 people, and they recently voluntarily started paying everyone a minimum wage of $15 an hour. And the reason that they did that is because they believe that by doing that, they would actually see savings, and they have. And the reason for that is one of the most expensive things for small business especially, but for big companies too, is churn, is employee turnover. And when you pay someone $8 an hour, they'll frequently leave and go to a different job or what have you. Now, when you pay someone a living wage of $15 an hour, they stay longer at the job. You don't have those churn costs. And people get better and more efficient at the jobs that they're doing, actually saving companies a lot of money. So to me, it's absolutely vital that we do raise the minimum wage to a living wage. I think $15 an hour is a great place for that. I think it needs to be tied to some kind of metric to make sure that it doesn't go down. And I also think that with these big corporations that are saying, oh, well, now there's going to be less jobs and now there's going to be higher priced goods, I think that that's wrong. And I think that they also are companies that often do not even pay any taxes. Now look at the rest of us. We pay 20, 30% on our income, yet big companies like GE or IBM or other companies like that employ a tremendous amount of people that are all paying those 30% taxes, they pay zero and sometimes negative taxes where they're just getting subsidies and not actually getting anything back. And that's something that's not okay and something that we can change by eliminating the ability of companies to do inversions where they send profits overseas, because these companies are taking advantage of the greatest economy in the world. They're taking advantage of the greatest legal system in the world by being based here and doing business here, the greatest employees in the world by doing business here. But they're not paying any taxes or giving back to the system that allows them to be so profitable. And this is something that we need to change.
Okay, so, I love everything that you just said, and I agree with most of it. But here's a good question that I think needs to be asked. It seems that a lot in our society or in our country, we call upon the rich to pay their fair share, as they should, and participate and, do and pay equally, whatever. My question, though, is how is it fair that it seems that progressives and liberals are always calling upon them to pay their fair share, but then when it comes to someone who's on welfare, we allow them to stay on and we don't really press for work? And now we're seeing that less people are working than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes to raising the minimum wage. So, for example, right now, as the system currently sits, you can probably, if you have children, get more money from welfare than you would get from a minimum wage job. And so the system, in my opinion, is actually incentivizing people to stay on welfare. I'd like to change that. I'd like to make it so that jobs are livable and pay enough that you do not need to rely on welfare. And then welfare can be scaled back because we'll be paying people a living wage. And I think that will do a tremendous amount to address that issue. Also, conservatives frequently point to, these people that just stay on welfare indefinitely. Well, the truth of the matter is that's such a small percentage of the people on welfare, are such a small percentage, infinitesimal percentage of our budget when you look at how much we spend to defense contractors or how much we basically subsidize these big companies by allowing them to pay zero taxes, or how much we subsidize big oil and big coal, that it's just a distractor to what are the real issues going on in this country. Now, I think if we change certain things about how we compensate people and certain things about the welfare system, I would be amenable to compromises like that. But I think we need to remember that oftentimes those arguments from conservatives are just distractors so that big corporations and very wealthy individuals can take advantage of the system much more severely than poor people ever are.
I don't know if I can disagree with you there, but I think it'd be pretty hard to, being that we're both, what seems to be bleeding heart liberals. So now let me ask you a little bit. I've seen that you call for no voter ID laws. Now, my question would be, why? It seems that we should, if we have some form of ID. I believe that the acceptance of ID should be expanded. I heard that in many states, such as Texas, they don't allow student IDs, and they don't allow numerous identification that would be allowed in many other places. But why no voter ID laws?
Yeah, well, so this is another one of those distractor issues, right? Because voter fraud is essentially a non-existent crime. It doesn't happen. With no voter IDs, it doesn't happen. And right now in this country, we're facing one of the most apathetic populaces in terms of politics that we have ever seen. I mean, in my district, during the last primary season when my opponent was elected, it's a district of 700,000 people. It's a district now, in New Jersey, primaries are closed. So only Democrats can vote in the primary. There's 180,000 Democrats. He won his seat with 18,000 votes. 18,000. It was the lowest voter turnout by percentage since 1840. And the reason I bring that up is because that's something that I think we're seeing across the country. And we shouldn't be doing things that are effectively going to continue to lower the turnout, which I believe voter ID laws will do, especially targeting minorities. I think rather than talking about voter ID laws, we should be talking about automatic registration like they just did up in the Pacific Northwest, where everyone is registered to vote, and you can then unregister if you'd like, but everyone is by default registered to vote. I think we should be talking about things like how can we vote digitally so that people don't need to take off from work to get to the polls, again, often disenfranchising poorer people. I think we need to be talking about these things around elections rather than how can we prevent minorities to vote in areas where white conservatives are worried that they might be losing their political dominance. And that's just how I see the narrative around this issue and something that I would talk about loudly in Washington, because there really is no reason that when people are issued their Social Security card that they shouldn't just be registered to vote automatically.
Hey, you know what? Again, agreed. Now, here's one of my extreme views. Let's outlaw coal, right? It kills thousands of people each year. Estimated in the United States, it kills 13,000 people each year. And already the solar industry has more jobs than coal. What would you do to the coal industry? What bills would you, sponsor or introduce to get rid of coal in this country? Because I think that is one of the biggest problems in this country faces today.
Yeah, well, so when I talk about energy, right, because I believe, like it sounds like you do, that sort of these, polluting big coal, big oil are moral wrongs, that we have a responsibility to the planet to take care of it, and especially when we have other means to do so that are actually more efficient. But at the same time, when I have this argument, when I have this discussion with people, when I'm out knocking on doors or talking to people in interviews, I try to frame it as an economic argument. Because if people aren't already on board with the moral argument, you're not going to convince them. So when I talk to people, I say, look, if you take away the subsidies from coal, if you take away the subsidies from oil, it's wildly expensive. It's way more expensive than green energy. Especially as solar, we know the more money we invest in the technology, the more efficient and the more cheap it will get. Whereas we're just throwing money at coal in the hopes that it will stay somewhere near the price that it currently is, even though we know it will eventually go up. It makes no sense, and it comes back to, these are companies that make billions of dollars and spend a lot of money lobbying Congress. But what I would do is I would write or sponsor legislation that would take at least some, if not all, but hopefully some, of the subsidies that the federal government gives towards big coal, and then send that towards green energy, send that towards solar, send that towards thermal or tidal or wind, and make it so that we have a revitalization of American energy in this country. And one of the biggest issues that we have with our energy, you could look at, the Southwest Desert or the Dakotas and how windy they are and the amount of energy that we could generate there. But the problem is our infrastructure to bring that energy from these places that are far removed from metropolitan areas is decaying. We could create, I heard one time Bobby Kennedy Jr. describe the Dakotas as the Saudi Arabia of wind. It's one of the windiest places on earth. And imagine if we could take that wind energy and bring it down to Chicago and power one of our biggest metropolises with it. The issue is we don't have the infrastructure to do it. And it's a shame because we could have built that infrastructure so that every house in America could send power right back or sell power right back to the system so that we could bring energy from the desert, from the Dakotas into metropolitan areas for the same price tag, actually less than we spent on a useless war in Iraq. But unfortunately, we did go with the war in Iraq rather than updating our own infrastructure. But these are the kind of investments that we need to be making in our future.
Now, let me ask you, and you don't have to answer this, but I'm just curious. would you consider yourself a democratic socialist like I do and like Bernie Sanders does?
Well, here's my issue with that word, right? So I saw a video recently where Bernie described his definition of democratic socialist, and basically, to me, it's just the equivalent of, a liberal Democrat, how I think about it, or even just a Democrat, because what we're talking about here is how do we help working people? And it's a shame that our society has become so polarized that we're just mentioning, hey, everyone should pay their fair share, and we should look to, stop giving people shortcuts because they have lots of money and try to make things better for everybody. And all of a sudden that's being described as democratic socialism. So to me, I consider myself a Democrat. I would say that I agree a tremendous amount with Bernie Sanders. I'm the only Democrat in the state of New Jersey running for federal office that has endorsed him. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I applaud his efforts to destigmatize the word, but I really consider myself a Democrat first and foremost.
Okay, so I have one last question, then we'll go to break. And would you like to stay with us and come back after break so we can ask a couple more questions?
Sure.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah, if you have more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, wonderful. So let's just ask one more question, then we'll get to break. It would be an easier question. So if you would vote for a Republican right now, who would you vote for? Just kind of a fun question, then we'll go to break.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see. Probably, if pushed, I would vote for John Kasich, but wouldn't really be happy about it. But I think he is the most centrist of the candidates. I think he's had some success in Ohio. I have some friends there who have said very good things about him. I think he, at the very least, is one of the only candidates in the race right now talking sanely about politics rather than these incredibly ridiculous, often bigoted remarks that the mainstream Republican candidates for president have been proliferating. So that would probably be my pick right now. I think he has a lot of similarities to, if I was going to vote for a Republican last time, it would have been John Huntsman. So that would probably be my pick.
All right. Well, hopefully we never have to pick between those two. All right, we're going to go to break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk more with Alex Law. We're going to talk about the Iran deal, maybe some marijuana, and maybe some other topics. Well, who knows? All right, I'm Bryce Robbins. This is Opinion Nation, and we will be right back after this break.
Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today.
Wondering why you're up early with us on a Sunday morning making a cocktail? News lately got you drinking? Hung over from the mainstream media by Sunday? We are, and we got you covered.
We sure do. We got your hangover cure for those weekly news blues. So sit back, top off your mimosa, and add some Baileys to that coffee.
Take a match to your copy of the New York Times. Light, funny, and oh yeah, news with booze.
And a lot of laughter.
Welcome to Bloody Marys and Broadsheets.
Wake up, America.
The biggest threat in those days were from factions seizing control of the governing apparatus and making decisions that were in their interests. Today, we call factions political parties. George Washington himself warned the nation about the dangers of factions in his farewell address.
Office hours with Dr. A, 3 p.m. on Sundays, K98 Talk. We've got something to say to you, America.
Hi, I'm Steve Long.
And I'm Lily Dane.
Are you tired of hearing the same Republican and Democrat banter from the mainstream media?
Does listening to the likes of Sean Hannity, Ann Coulter, Piers Morgan, and Rachel Maddow make you want to jump off a bridge?
If so, come listen to us on Liberty Unfiltered, Sunday nights at 8 Central, 9 Eastern on K98Talk.com.
Join us as we fight for freedom against the advocates of big government.
Liberty Unfiltered. It's not your daddy's political talk show.
All right, welcome back, and I'm still here with Alex Law, congressional hopeful in the upcoming election. So, how many days till you are, in the race and the voting happens?
Yeah, well, so the election really all comes down to the Democratic primary in my district. It's a very blue district, so the winner of that, especially in the presidential year, will presumably carry the seat because we have about 180,000 Democrats and about 60,000 Republicans in the district. So that election is on June 7th, 2016. So we're going to be campaigning here full-time for about a year in order to be in a position where we think we're going to win. And to do that, we've already knocked on about 15,000 doors this summer. We've done quite a few community events and backyard parties and things like that because we're making this campaign fundamentally about people. We're trying to talk to as many people as possible because I'm of the belief that, hey, that's how politics should be. Indeed, in a primary in June, the only way people show up to vote are either if they vote every time anyway or if they have some kind of personal connection to the campaign. And big money media buys and other things like that tend not to be persuasive in a primary. So we believe we need 20,000 votes to win this thing. And I'd like all 20,000 of those people that are going to come out to vote for me to feel like they know me. Feel like if I was walking down the street, they'd feel, hey, Alex, how you doing? And that's the kind of campaign we're really running.
Hey, hopefully. So, a big topic that I was talking about in my last show, we're kind of, I guess, jumping all over the place today, would be about the Iran deal. I know Bernie Sanders agrees with it, and that's pretty much my litmus test for what I agree with, but I find it that I don't agree with this Iran deal. To me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It seems that we're giving a lot up, not getting a lot in return, but this is your interview. So what is your thoughts on the Iran deal? Would you support it? Would you get rid of it? What's your opinion?
Yeah, this has actually been a hot-button topic here in my district because my opponent, a Democrat, was one of the few people in the House few Democrats in the House to go against the president in peace and come out against the deal. And myself, as a Jewish American, as someone who's traveled to Israel, is someone that is for the deal. So it's been a really divisive issue in my district. And I actually wrote a piece for Huffington Post. If anyone listening wants to sort of read more about my opinion on the Iran deal, you can find that. Just Google Alex Law, Huffington Post, and you should be able to find it no problem. But I do believe this is a good deal. I believe it totally prevents Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon within the next 10 years. So it gives us time to find a new deal. It cements the United States back on the side of diplomacy in the world politics. In the past 2 decades, we've been a country that's been war first and then asked for permission, build coalition second. And it's nice that for the first time in really our adult lifetime, for the millennial generation, that our government is taking the side of peace. And we effectively use sanctions to cripple the Iranian economy, to get them to agree to the terms that we set out to do, and we achieved the deal that we thought we wanted, and we got that deal. We have inspections that will prevent them from getting a bomb. We've played ball with our allies and showed them that we can use diplomacy to make things work, and I think it's a good deal, and I think Congress is coming around to that. They do not have the votes to prevent the deal. And I'm excited that the United States took the side of peace.
Well, my problem is I don't know if this will end up leading to peace. But, I guess to each his own in the sense I was the one who always advocates that if they want nuclear power, let them have thorium reactors. Because if you ever do any research on thorium, which I hope you might, if you ever do win in Congress, then maybe you could bring that to the floor. But thorium can't make a nuclear bomb, so that would be good. Now, I mean, I guess we can jump back and forth here, but I do want to get back onto the topic of what you were talking about earlier with one of the things you supported, and that was college costs. So, what specific steps would you take to reduce the cost of college, or I don't know if you're as extreme as Bernie and I, but make public colleges free or tuition free? What steps would you take to do this?
Well, I think overnight, something that we can do that will, change the lives of millions of Americans is, allow people that have borrowed at exorbitant rates to refinance and allow all new borrowers through the federal government to finance at the same or very near the same rates that banks get, because we should not be profiting off of our students. Think about how ridiculous the situation in this country is, that we're making billions of dollars in interest rates off our students, yet we're making no dollars off of some of the biggest companies because they don't pay any taxes. It makes no sense. So I would say overnight we could change that with a piece of legislation that allows people to refinance at or near the rate that banks borrow at, and new borrowers to get student loans at those rates. I think that's absolutely essential and needs to be part of any college plan that moves forward. And this is something, by the way, that Elizabeth Warren has advocated for and really brought to the national level in terms of a real policy solution to this problem. Like you mentioned, Bernie and Martin O'Malley and Hillary all have different plans around what parts of college education should and shouldn't be free. I think that at the very least, we need to move towards what President Obama talked about in one of his State of the Unions, that we should try to make, at the very least, community colleges free, so that people can continue to get an education after high school and have an opportunity to cut down those bachelor costs by going to get their associate's degree and take off some credits and hopefully then be able to do 2 years of bachelor at a lower cost. I do think that public schools and state schools should be lower cost. I mean, we're seeing the cost of our biggest state school in New Jersey, Rutgers, rise every single year. So I think that those should be lower. But to me, I think we can only tackle so many pieces of this issue at once, and I'd like to see the rates that people borrow at come down to a very fair level, because the thing that concerns me most is oftentimes you have 18-year-old kids signing on to a loan that they don't really understand, with interest rates they can't comprehend, and that they will then pay for essentially the rest of their lives. Whereas I think everyone can understand, if I'm borrowing $100,000 or $50,000 at 1% interest, that's essentially $50,000, and it allows people to really understand what they're doing. I mean, I'm a guy who went to business school. I'm a guy who's worked in big companies and in finance. And one thing I could tell you about those industries is that everything is made almost intentionally difficult to understand, so that normal people have no chance. And a lot of what I'd like to see in terms of financial regulation or changes to how students borrow is clarifying and making it easier for people to understand what exactly is going on with the financial sector.
Hey, I mean, that doesn't sound so bad to me at all.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump ships again. This might be, you might not have an opinion on this the way I do, but you seem to be a business guy. You went to NYU Stern. It's kind of where I want to go, not necessarily Stern. I'd rather go to the liberal arts school. If you didn't know, I just turned 17, actually, and been doing this radio show for a while. So college is right around the corner for me, but on to the topic about the big banks in this country. Do you have any opinion on the Federal Reserve?
I don't really have any opinion in terms of how we need to change or do things with the Federal Reserve. What I do have an opinion on is the ridiculous way that regulations have been written, essentially by the lobbyists for the banking sector, writing the regulations for the banking sector. It's totally unacceptable. It's totally ridiculous that regulations for banks need to be 1,000 pages long. Absolutely ridiculous. The only reason that it's so long is so that there's loopholes so that the banks can get around it. I mean, I had a class once at Stern where the professor talked about how much of a joke regulations were, because no matter what regulations were written by politicians, the banks would pay enough money to get them changed so that loopholes would be there and it could continue to do whatever it is that they wanted to do. And I know that to be a fact. So to me, we need to restore the kind of regulation we had in this country for much of our history, or at least from FDR time until through the 1990s. Is that regulation should be short, 10 pages, 20 pages, with clear, explicit rules that there is no room for interpretation around, that keep banks from doing unbelievably and unacceptably risky behavior. Like we saw in 2006, 2007, and we need to prevent that from happening again.
All right. I mean, hey, again, not disagreeing with you on that one either.
Good.
So, it's very nice to see someone who's liberal trying to win in Congress, because it seems that, I think over time our country moves in the left direction, whether it's social change or economic change. I think that we are always been on a trend shifting leftward. I mean, civil rights, women's rights to vote, those are just some social issues. But in our Congress right now, or in our houses, in the Senate, and in politics in general, we are so divided, and everything is so polarized. And I don't know. Do you think that coming at it from a very liberal approach is the right way to go?
I do, and I think the polarization, well, one, I really don't much care if that's the best way or not. I told everyone when I got into politics I was going to speak my mind on issues, and that wasn't going to change no matter what was politically popular or not. I've been fortunate enough that a lot of the people I've talked with since I decided to run have been agreeable to the ideas that I have. But I'm always going to sort of speak my ideas as long as I'm in politics. But I think the reason for this polarization, the reason that we've had since 2007, the least productive Congresses year after year after year, is because, and I know I've said this a couple of times, it all goes back to Citizens United. The fact that now untraceable, enormous amounts of money are flowing into Congress, into elected officials from big corporations and wealthy individuals. Now it costs millions of dollars to be elected to Congress oftentimes. We're hopefully going to change that in our election, or be at least the exception of the rule. Tens of millions of dollars to be elected to the Senate. And these people are essentially sitting on unassailable hills that normal people could never hope to run against. And the reason they get to stay on that hill is because they don't compromise and they just do whatever their corporate or rich sponsors tell them to do. And this is a system now that is set up to fail. And that's why I think one of the most important things we can do in this country is change that through an amendment to the Constitution. And I think after that happens, we're going to see a tremendous increase in compromises, an increase in the amount of turnover in Congress, and a real restoration of the democratic process.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Now, a question that I asked to Jim Gilmore on one of our recent interviews, he said no. So my question, I don't understand what's behind people saying no, but it seems that a lot due to this question. Would you support an equal rights amendment to the Constitution that would embody the LGBTQ community, blacks, Hispanics, whites, everybody?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's ridiculous that we even need one, but yes, I would absolutely support something like that. In the meantime, I would support or write legislation that would start making some of those things a reality even before an amendment was passed. But of course.
Okay. So, it's been great, getting to talk to another liberal. Today was perhaps one of my favorite interviews because normally my blood is boiling and my veins are popping out by the end of my interviews. As I sit behind here screaming in my head, trying to understand why people are saying certain things, but they say them. So it's been a pleasure having you on. Tell us where we can find you, your social media, and just any last thoughts you want to tell us, whatever you want.
Yeah, well, before we went to break, one last issue I think you alluded to that we didn't end up getting to was marijuana, and I am someone that is for the legalization of marijuana. I think that drug reform is incredibly important in our society. One, because our policing of drug laws has been incredibly racist. I mean, we see ridiculous amounts of African American males being imprisoned for marijuana-related crimes, despite the fact that drug usage has been shown to be consistent across all races. I think that we need to legalize marijuana for that reason. I think we also need to legalize marijuana for economic benefits. And when you look at Colorado, Washington State, two places with the most new millionaires anywhere in this country, education paid for, crime down. It's really unbelievable the sentences and things that go on for nonviolent crimes. I mean, America is a country where we have a creed that we're the land of the free, but the American deed just does not match the American creed right now, in that we've imprisoned more people than any nation in the history of the world. So this is something that is close to my heart, that is something that I think we need to do. I say it's close to my heart because we have Camden in my district, a town that is often in the national media for being one of the towns in America with the least economic opportunity and the biggest drug problem. And I've seen that sort of plague there through, people being put in jail and then coming out and not having opportunities. I think we need to change our treatment for other drugs like heroin or other addictive opiates. Rather than punishing people and throwing them in jail, change it towards a more treatment-based model. So these are just some thoughts I have around that. But anyway, back to your question of where you can find me. Our biggest social media community is our Facebook page, which you can find at facebook.com/AlexLawNJ. You can also find me on Twitter at AlexLawNJ. Our website is Alex Law for Congress, where we have lots of videos and policy papers and information, both about my opinion on national issues as well as if you want to learn about what's going on in my district. And we didn't really get into that, which is refreshing because oftentimes that's a conversation I have with people, but I'm running against one of the most corrupt political machines anywhere in this country, the Norcross machine. I encourage you to go check them out, and we have some information about what's going on with them on our website. And of course, if you want to support our campaign with a $3 donation, you can go right on over to the website, alexlawforcongress.com, click that contribute button, and it'll take you to AxBlue, which is the platform that Democrats use for fundraising, and make a contribution today, which would be incredibly helpful and will go directly towards our field campaign, talking to real people about politics.
Hey, I gotta say, Norcross, that sounds like a pretty evil name. I mean, like right out of a movie. So, and your last name is Law, so I'm sure you'll instill some laws, or some good ones at least. But thank you very much once again for coming on the show. I hope to have you back in the future. It's been refreshing getting to talk to another liberal. So, have a great day and take care of yourself and good luck with your elections, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Okay, yeah, thanks so much for having me, and enjoy the holiday weekend.
You as well. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So, first of all, I got to say that was a great interview. Second of all, I got to say, Donald Norcross, that just sounds like an evil name. I mean, like, out of a movie evil. Ugh. It just sounds corrupt. Maybe we can get him on for an interview. That'd be kind of fun, right? Next week, we have Donald next week we have Rod Eccles coming on the show, hopefully. Rumor had it he was a little scared of my liberal blows. He knew I was starting. No, I'm just kidding. He had some technical issues, so he was unreachable last week. But next week he should be here, and the fight will square off. So if you want to listen to a real battle royale, you're going to join us next week. But how fun would that be to get Donald Norcross to come on the show to defend himself against what we just heard? So I'm going to play a clip from Alex Law's website, and it's Well, it's very good. It's inspirational. It's good. It makes me feel patriotic, and it makes me feel happy to be a liberal. That there are people that the people of my generation, our mindset from our northeastern little bubble, are finally materializing in our, I guess, legislative body. We're sick of the conservative machine and the Democrat machine, the Hillary machine, basically the establishment machines that have grown over time. And hopefully people like Alex Law become the new establishment. So I'm going to play this video that you can hear it. It's kind of long, it's around 3 minutes, but it really expresses who he is, what he wants to do, and I guess the angle that he's coming at it from. So why don't we have a listen? If it loads. But it's taking a while. So we give it one more shot.
We fight every day for a better life. We push forward, finding a way to engage our communities, pay the bills, and spend time with our families. And we do this despite the best effort of many of those in government to stifle our exceptional spirit. Corruption and self-interest has trumped a passion for public service in many of our elected officials. Politicians have circumvented the democratic process, enriching themselves and their friends, preventing meaningful government action. It's time for this to end. Too many of these entrenched politicians have forgotten that they are not the engine of government. We, the people, are. My name is Alex Law, and I'm a candidate for United States Congress. South Jersey, the corner of this country that I call home, is one of the grossest examples of this frightening trend. We have a political machine here led by a powerful trio of brothers, Phil, Boss George, and Donald Norcross. It is a machine made up of the worst kind of politicians, one loyal to machine first and constituent second. It is a machine with parts oiled by money plundered from the state and our hometowns. It is a machine people are afraid of. But Americans are not born with saddles on their backs to be ridden by a powerful few who have convinced us that we have no alternative. We have never been a people to accept being governed by fear. We must oppose this corruption in government. We must fight against these machine men with machine minds and machine hearts who only want to increase their power and line their pockets. We must find the courage to fight against this scourge in our community. We must ensure the promise of freedom and liberty, for if there are Americans willing to commit themselves to this task, it is a promise that will never die. Now, I know my district isn't the only one with corruption, but we have to start somewhere. Help me start here. Help me transform this spark into a bright light. There is nothing wrong in any of our districts that can't be fixed with what's right in our districts. Together, we can push this corruption out of our government. Our leadership has lost its way, driving us collectively to a daunting crossroads. One path is surely easier to take, but requires no change. But if we take that path, we will make these problems worse for our children and our grandchildren. Walk with me instead down a different path. It will be difficult. Our foes are oligarchs, wealthy from pillaging during their time in power. But I promise you that sense of hopelessness will evaporate as soon as we stand up to the machine. We look across at those who stand guard for these controlling powers, and we know that no matter how dedicated they are, we are more steadfast. No matter how clever they are, we are wiser. No matter how rich they are, we are wealthier in truth. I will not surrender. We will not surrender. To win, we must shift our mindset from one of passive disapproval to one of youthful passion. Where youth chooses adventure over ease, courage over timidity. Walk with me. I can't do it alone. I need your help. Together, we can make our voices loud enough to be heard in Washington. Together, we can choose the path past corruption and build a bridge to a better tomorrow. Together, we can show this country that politics can change and that machines can be defeated. Together, I promise you, we will win.
All right, so I don't know. I mean, that's just captivating for a liberal like myself. But look, if any liberal who you talk to, they're gonna have agreements and disagreements. Like, as you witnessed, I disagree with him completely on the Iran deal. I think it's a horrible deal. But I guess that's one of my more stereotypical Republican views. But if we can look past the basics, Bill Maher put it best. If I could ask a politician any two questions, I'd ask them, what are you going to do about climate change? And what are you going to do about campaign finance reform? Money in politics. And Alex seems to have clear ideas on both issues and seems to have a clear identity on where he stands on them. And he seems to be a young Bernie Sanders, so hopefully he wins Congress, he goes far, and he does well. I'm wishing him the best on that. And please, go donate to him. Go fund his campaign. And hopefully a machine doesn't take anything, it doesn't go all the way back to Congress. Now, I thought it was interesting. He quotes Charlie Chaplin with the machine minds and machine hearts. So that was pretty interesting. He also paraphrased Bill Clinton, well, we can, what's wrong with this country, whatever, we can fix with what's right with America. It was a good paraphrasing I caught there. But in all reality, this country is in a lot of trouble. And Donald Trump is doing the best job at emphasizing it, but it is true. Our healthcare system, Obamacare, is broken. And yes, it's good that everybody gets health insurance, but it funds the insurance machine, which they are thrilled beyond belief. Because now, if you're an employer, you gotta sign your employees up for their health insurance. The health insurance companies are making a fortune. Well, premiums are going up. And yes, it's good that everybody gets health. Evidently, there's something wrong with that. It seems to me that there's a huge problem when it comes to Obamacare, when it comes to healthcare. And I like Donald Trump's idea. Single payer healthcare for the poor and for the middle class and up, a complete free market. Doesn't sound too bad. But we're in a lot of trouble. And I think liberal principles, right, will get us back to where we need to go. Think about it this way. When the majority of senior citizens who could no longer work were impoverished during the 1930s, we had Social Security, which lifted millions of people out of poverty. And all the Koch-funded politicians, the Koch brother-funded politicians like Scott Walker, Rubio, and Bush, want to raise the age of Social Security, make it privatized, blah, blah, blah. You'll hear the same shit every single time. But with liberal principles, it's not get rid of, it's not increase the age, it's spend more responsibly your money so that we can keep Social Security, we don't have to raise the age, and people can live out their life without the fear of being impoverished. I think Alex Law does an amazing job at embodying those liberal principles from what we've seen. And yes, he's young, but hopefully that doesn't deter anyone from voting for him, because he seems to be having some great ideas, and he seems that I hope that is the future, evidently, because I like liberals and I want him to win. So for the rest of the show, I am going to do two things. One, I'm going to pick on Rick, and two, I'm going to say my goodbyes. So for one, today was definitely great. Yesterday was a great birthday, so 2 great days in a row. And then I wanted to say one quick thing. Labor Day. Labor Day is pretty awesome because it's kind of socialist, right? We're celebrating the workers, giving them a day of break, and their employers can't, bully them or whatever. So happy Labor Day, everybody. Hope you have a good one. But finally, I'm going to pick on Rick and play a cool song because, hey, I didn't get to talk about Bernie Sanders enough today. So,
my God, are you still talking?
My name is Bryce Robbins. This is Opinion Nation, and I'll be back next week with Rod Eccles, where we go toe to toe. But first, the song.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.